Hello and welcome to this video. This is the video on the chapter on the reversed Grunfeld. Yeah, we have a reversed Grunfeld chapter because if you think about this a little bit, what we are doing, our opening approach with combining d4, knight f3 and g3 is quite similar to what happens in the Grunfeld when black plays this opening. Like, look at this. Black is essentially combining the kingside fianchetto with the d-pawn push, and we are doing the same with white, which means that there can be something that you can call the reverse Grunfeld, and this is the following line: d4, d5, knight f3, knight f6, g3, and now black playing c5. Black is attacking our center and maybe will actually take there, which would really lead to something that can be clearly classified as reverse Grunfeld, as c-pawn gets traded for d-pawn, our knight comes to d4, and so on. Before we look into this a little bit more, I wanted to briefly mention that this setup with c5 and d5 can also be prepared with e6. So black could also play, let's say, e6 here, we play g3, they play c5, we play bishop g2, and black takes, and so on. This is possible, but it doesn't really have any independent value, as black will play knight f6 very soon anyway. For example, here, after the capture, knight takes, knight f6 is clearly a move, or in fact, we can also castle here first, which after knight f6, knight d4 would also be transposing. So we basically have no independent value in early e6s, and we should focus on the usual move order of knight f6, g3, c5, and here we play bishop g2, of course. Now, the main continuation here is for black to take on d4 at some point. You can do that here, or you can do that in some moves later. For example, knight c6, castles, takes would be a way to do that, or right away, which is a difference. And the difference is that if we capture on d4 now, we won't, we first will castle. But here there can be the difference that there is no knight on c6 that we can take. We'll discuss that in a moment. The other approach that black has is something like knight c6, we castle, black plays e6, we play c4, and we have basically now completed our standard set of moves, as we do quite often in many lines, like the Catalan or some rarer lines, or a Queen's Indian, for example. This is a very standard setup. We have played d4, c4, and fianchettoed. Here, it's important to see if they now take on d4. We have this scenario that we've discussed before. Black takes there. Black may also take here, which is the final part of this chapter, or he can play bishop e7, after which all of a sudden we can transpose into a Tarrasch. So basically, if black keeps the tension with c5 and d5, we will often end up in a Tarrasch defense that is covered in chapter 2 on the rare d4, d5 lines. The most important parts here of this chapter will be featuring black taking on d4, and we should, we will look at this shortly. A smallish independent option here would be for black to play e6, and after castle, play something like bishop to e7. This is a bit rare, but it sometimes happens. We still play c4, and now again, black will very often transpose somewhere else. For example, castling would be a Tarrasch, or they can take on d4, and after knight d4, we look at a position that we will examine shortly in the main repertoire when black takes on d4. A smallish independent option would be for black to take on c4 here, which we can answer in more than one good way. D takes c5 is a good move, but I recommend queen a4, where you get the pawn back easily. Yeah, bishop d7, queen takes. Yeah, black can also play knight d7. This is quite funnily a position that we have looked at, or that we examine in the Catalan chapter. Here, They can go a6 and we go queen c2 for a nice advantage. This is checked in the Catalan chapter, but all those moves are very natural anyway. We take on c4 after bishop d7 and after bishop to c6. It's an idea for black for sure to try to neutralize the bishop. We can simply take the pawn, and black is not really in a good position here to get it back. He will get it back, but under terms that are not very favorable. Yeah, we will keep it covered. b4 is not so good due to a5, but we can cover it with the bishop move. And here, black will finally play b6 to make sure that he gets it back. Now, we of course cannot take due to the discovery. After rook d1, however, castles and rook c1, we get to a point where black cannot really avoid b takes c5 anymore, and then we will have clearly the better pawn structure with the c pawn being weak. This line is rather rare, as mentioned, but it is one of the few independent possibilities with an early e6 here. Again, most of the time they will take or play knight to c6. After the capture, it is really important now to remember that you should not take on d4. The reason behind this is not something like knight c6. That is a line that we would be happy to play. But the problem is is e5, I'm sorry, when our knight has no good option. We will probably have to go to b3, which is a rather unfavorable, sorry, a rather unfavorable square. The knight is passive, and we cannot so easily attack the center with c4. This is something that we have in our repertoire in a quite similar way with white. If you look at the chapter on the Grunfeld, where we take the white side against the Grunfeld setup, we will examine this variation where the same thing happens here to the black side. They don't have anything to capture, have to go into a passive square. Here white is quite substantially better. And this is why in this situation after the capture we shouldn't take, but we should castle. This is a lot better. We're just waiting one move and ask black about a decision. And in fact, quite often black will play knight c6 and simply go into something that we really don't mind playing. The reversed Grunfeld with the capture on d4 and the knight on c6 is, I think, quite good for white, and something that I will present to you in sometime later in this video. It will be a long one anyway, much ground to cover. Now, what other option does black have? The main theoretical argument against white's overall strategy is to delay the move knight c6 and somehow ask white, okay, what are you doing? Do you want to take on d4 maybe later and still allow e5? Um, the most sophisticated tries to do that are h6 and bishop to d7. Yeah, they look not very natural to me, and I think it's very unlikely that you will meet them in a regular, let's say, club championship game or in a league game when you play non-professionals. But they definitely have to be checked. More natural options here are e6 and g6. I think I'm going to start here with maybe the move e6. Yeah, let's start with this one. After e6, we are running out of useful waiting moves in a way. Yeah, now we should probably take and simply say, okay, yeah, it might be that you can kick us with e5, but it takes two moves, e6, e5. So compared to Grunfeld situations when it is a proper Grunfeld with black playing the setup, we would even be like two tempi up. Yeah, we have white and we have e6, e5 played in two moves. So normally now black plays e6 to e5, which does not mean that that happens all of the time. We also have to check bishop e7 and knight to c6. We have to keep in mind these positions can easily arise from different move orders. Yeah, for example, black could have started with e6, c5 on the very first moves taken on d4 and only later play d5. That is a quite regular occurrence and very nice for white. Now,